Hello, today we've got composer Dr. Brigid Burke, and we're going to be talking about her work Silk, which is for bass clarinet and E-flat clarinet, bass clarinet and voice, prepared piano, flute and voice, electronics and visuals, written in 2014. So, I found a little bit of information about your work, and I think it sums it up quite well, and I presume you would have written it. Silk is dark and joyous, with unexpected circus moments. It contextualizes thoughts into an elaborate score, with vibrant interactions of different mediums of sound, performance, and visuals. I think that sums it up quite nicely, that particular paragraph to talk about the work. So let's start from the start. Why did you do this particular work? Why were you composing this one?
Well, I was doing a PhD through the University of Tasmania, and I was told when you write a thesis, you're not allowed to talk about your feelings. You've got to be academic. So I decided I'm going to write a piece about how I feel about music, what I think of music, and so I collected all these words about my thoughts and my feelings, and this was Silk, sums it up really, and there was pages and pages, and actually throughout the work you see these words, they pop up and they travel, and that's
so there are words that pop up. So they pop up in the visuals?
Yes.
And do they pop up because there are spoken voice parts for the flute and one of the bass clarinet parts? So are they speaking through,
they are.
Yes, about what you're feeling at the time of writing?
Absolutely. So the voice actually comes in right from the beginning, and it's sort of like you sing while you're playing the bass clarinets, and there's all these whisper sounds in the flute, and then the flute and the bass clarinet, we start actually saying these words in a party sort of situation. So you could be in a crowd, and then it goes back to the slowness, and basically the E-flat clarinet part, which is a big feature in the middle, there's a solo and there is a bass clarinet, but that's sort of like, wow, let's go and have fun, and and it's very melodic and it sings. It's like an opera singer singing these really high notes, and it hasn't got much voice, but the part is speaking like it's a voice. It's phrased like it's a voice throughout the phrasing of the E-flat clarinet part.
It's in one continuous movement,
yes,
what I can remember, and in the middle there's sort of an interlude for the electronics to shine, as it were, and I think what I like about the work is there's so many layers to it. I like that it's very textual through the various voices of I don't mean just the instrumental voices, and your voice as well, as in the speaking voice, but there's extended techniques, there's graphic notation as well, traditional notation. How did you interweave such disparate ideas into such a holistic unity?
I sort of came up with different melodic patterns and tonalities, and I'm really inspired by Malcolm Arnold. So we hear a lot of his sort of fanfare and rhythmic sort of pulses that he has in his music. So that's sort of brought on the energy like we were in a festival. So I introduced sort of different instruments, had different voices, they were different characters, different personalities, and they maintained their personalities right through the whole work. And each of the performers I've performed with, well, except for the pianist because it was originally written for David McNichol, and I worked with him for 20 years with clarinet and piano, and each of the voices and each of the lines of instrumentalists is basically based on their personality a bit, and how I collaborated and how I interact with them, and what they could do well. And so that's why each of the layers have this sort of individuality about them.
Let's look at the graphic notating thing, because in some of your music, you hone in on graphic notation as opposed to standard or traditional notation. How did you find the performers interacting with the graphics? Were they comfortable with it? Did you need to get lots of rehearsals involved? And how did the graphic notation fit with the visuals that we see behind the performance?
Okay. So each performer coped with graphic notation and improvisation differently. So some of the instrumentalists do heaps more of the improvisation interpreting the graphics. And I'm very literal in how you interpret the graphics. I write lots of notes on what they should play, when they should play it, how they should play it. And
so you're in control.
I'm in control. So because the work has been played, 2 or 3 times, it always comes up the same, which is actually, really quite...
Is that what you're wanting?
That's what I'm wanting. I wanted them to interpret it so it has that same energy, and each time it's performed. And of course, different performers down the track will interpret it differently, but with the graphics. And sometimes I've taught for so many years and I've played in so many ensembles. A lot of improvisers don't actually look at the notes on how it should be played, but I always want it to be played. And this work is actually played with a stopwatch, so every performer and they have to do certain things at different intervals right through, and there's all these meeting points where we all interact and all the rhythmic, and it's all cued. But each performer, I knew the flute player could actually improvise as well, and she could read anything. So she was actually very flexible and versatile. The pianists both the pianists that have actually played it were actually very good at both. On this occasion in the performance, you see that she's an incredibly amazing improviser, but after working with David McNichol, who's a repertoire, he became a very good improviser, and he actually rejoiced in it. It was like, oh wow, I can actually be free. And he knew how to improvise with my works because he played them for so many years. And then my sister Grania, who I wrote a lot of the parts for, she's now much more comfortable at improvising, but she prefers to see the notes on the page, and she interprets them the way, of course, because we've worked together for all our lives. So I knew what the capabilities. And then there was the electronic part. And the electronic parts is actually based on all us as instrumentalists. And I actually did a lot of just processing with ring modulators and phases and different effects, and just transposing down, so that was like a throbbing thing to go with the piano part, and matched a lot of the piano parts with so sometimes, because it was a prepared piano, you didn't see the difference between the prepared piano and the electronics. And that was the idea of merging all the layers together. So the piano and the clarinets and the flute were all of the same sort of quality right through the work and merged together, even the graphics, so it was all just part of it.
Finally, you mentioned Malcolm Arnold, and I think you could say that there's that delightful sonatina that we all love, and the fantasy of both for clarinet and piano. How have you interwoven Malcolm Arnold's music into your own?
Well, I basically chopped up his scores and put them all over a big page, and just used different tonalities, and then got some of his rhythms and then slightly changed them. But I really loved the energy of the sonatina. The fantasy, so the sonatina for the clarinet, but the fantasy is actually all those runs going up and all over the place. That's from the solo clarinet work, and I just followed the shapes. I didn't actually even use the tonality. I just tried to replicate the energy and the difference in dynamics, the very soft to the very loud, so they all interwoven together.
And because you've obviously played both works and taught those works, particularly the sonatina, that's a very popular student work as well, and rightfully so, because it is quite delightful in many respects. But you couldn't say that we sit down and we could hear Malcolm Arnold.
No, not at all. And also I have played the Malcolm Arnold on all the instruments. I played the flute sonata as well, many years ago. I don't think he wrote much for saxophone, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't know. And but yes, no, you wouldn't hear Malcolm Arnold through it. I just wanted the energy of Malcolm Arnold's work to be sort of interpreted into this really huge piece. Yeah.
The performance we're going to hear, following on from this interview, was from 2017 in Melba Hall, and the performers were Brigid Burke on bass clarinet and voice, Grania Burke, E-flat clarinet and bass clarinet, Megan Kenny, flute and voice, and Rosa Scafidi on prepared piano. Enjoy.